I'll ask anybody's question but yours. You're an idiot. And really a disloyal person.
I swear that the shirt that I first pulled out of the drawer was this red shirt. This is not on purpose. I am not showing my bias. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Disloyal Idiots Podcast here on the Fans First Sports Network. Christian Guzman here alongside Steve Haller, and our special guest this week is John Arsenago, our resident lacrosse writer on our favorite sister site, newsmagician.com. As you can imagine, this time of year, the lacrosse talk will be indeed hopping, and it is on fire right now after one of the best quarterfinal weekends in men's lacrosse recent memory. We've got John here to break it down, especially since Syracuse is off to Memorial Day weekend for the first time since 2013. John, have you caught your breath yet, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. Just barely, and now into the soaking it in mode for sure. Enjoying watching the games today while soaking it in.
Steve, I know as a non-traditional, regular, casual lacrosse fan, you caught the fourth quarter. What was it like seeing the tail end of that Syracuse-Princeton game?
I don't know how to put words to it. It was like, as someone who's finally started to understand the sport, and still stands by the fact that the best sporting event I've ever witnessed, like live, was the Syracuse Cornell final.
Mm-hmm.
This weirdly ranked up there with it as far as the back and forth stupidity of like, I don't know what's happening and I love this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think on the broadcast at one point, I forget exactly which moment it was, but Kark said he was just like, I don't even know how to describe this game. What in the world is happening? Something like that. And it was like, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
What's going on? Who knows? We're just trying to hang on for dear life.
Well, and I showed up at the tail end of the third, like, Cuse had scored, and then Princeton answered going into the break.
Yeah.
And then the run happened, and it was like, oh, shit, here we go.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the game happened.
Syracuse starts the third quarter on a 6-0 run. Chad Palumbo scores with 3 seconds left in the third to start a Princeton 7-1 run, and then Cuse scores the final 2 goals of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to give context again, like as well to just how insane this game was. This game was 11-10 Princeton at the half.
Mm-hmm.
The game prior was Cornell Richmond, and that game was 13-12 at the final.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 37 combined goals, over 90 shots. I mean,
and that's with
awesome stuff.
Call me crazy, but having not watched as much lacrosse as you guys, do that many shots ring off the pipe every single game? Because holy crap.
There were 4 pipes in that fourth quarter by Syracuse. 3 of them in the final 2 minutes. It was
3 of them on like one possession.
Yeah. It was all the same possession. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was insane. Absolutely insane.
It was. Oh man.
Your final shot total is Syracuse 51 and Princeton 42.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the shots alone in the first quarter were Syracuse 17, Princeton 10. Which, if the shots are already that in the first quarter, we're heading in for a wild one. Yep. Before we dive deeper into this Syracuse-Princeton game, it's important for us, because we haven't had a lacrosse podcast in a bit, to illustrate how we got here. Because we go to the start of April, and Syracuse has a lot of momentum behind it at the start of April. You just come off a good road win against Virginia, who was trending downward, and then you pick up that big dome win against Notre Dame. It's the 2-time back-to-back national champions in the dome, and you beat them pretty convincingly in the dome.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, it's 3 straight losses to end the regular season to Cornell, to Duke, and then North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
John, how do you conceptualize how different that Syracuse team is to end a regular season to where we are now after winning the ACC tournament and now 2 games away from a national championship?
Yeah. I think it's a team that finally, the way I thought about it at the ACC tournament was just saying to myself, they finally woke up is the way I thought about it. That 3-game losing streak against all really good teams, not like, there was great competition. So it's understandable, but I go back to that Duke performance, that first Duke game where they kind of came out and sleepwalked in that game, lost 11-7, just got run off the field by Duke basically. And it was a performance for me that really just had me questioning the motivations of the team in terms of why they came out the way they did and lacking the fire that Duke had in that game. And then, the next week got pretty handily beaten by North Carolina, only ended up losing by 2, but they were down by 6 late in that game before a little run that they went on late. I think they finally reached the point where they just woke up. It was, they got down to Charlotte for the ACC tournament, and who knows, maybe weirdly playing Notre Dame was like, the medicine that this team needed. One of the biggest question marks for them in recent years. The biggest has been Notre Dame, and they finally seemed to figure them out this year with the 2 performances that they put against the Irish. Who knows? Maybe that was the thing that got them cooking, and 2 days later it was Duke. But I don't know. 3 straight losses. They just it finally clicked into gear for them after 3 straight losses to finish out the regular season. And now a couple of near escape incredible performances, and we're feeling like they're, they got it rolling downhill, which is exciting stuff.
Well, that's the thing too, is
go ahead.
It's not just the one, like this crazy performance. Like last week was a nail biter too, and they were down real late.
Yeah,
and it's has Gate gotten the team to buy in and things to kind of turn around, or is it more of a? I guess that's going to ultimately be the offseason talk of, was this the team just grabbing it by the horns, or was this like a big moment for Gate turning things around from a coaching standpoint? And that may be too deep to where we want to go right now, but like it's definitely something we're going to need to talk about in the offseason. Yeah,
for sure. And it's, it's a really tough one. It's a tough one to answer about. And he's such an interesting coach, Gate, I think, because of his personality and his demeanor. He's tough to get a beat on at times. And he empowers his players a lot in terms of the confidence that he has in them and that he wants them to have in themselves, and that they definitely do have in themselves, the confidence and the creativity and all of that. And
you couldn't tell me Miss Polina's post-game interview that there was any confidence anywhere.
There you go. There you go. That's all you need to see. Yep. That's the answer to your question right there. My goodness.
So before we get to even more of what happened in the NCAA tournament, I do want to go back to the Notre Dame thing, because I think, lost in the shuffle of this now, because Syracuse is safely in the tournament, they're into the Final Four. Lost in the shuffle of all of this is that if Syracuse loses that first round game against Notre Dame, there's a very real chance that Syracuse doesn't make the tournament.
Yeah.
What is it about Syracuse versus Notre Dame this season that made the Orange perform so well against a Fighting Irish team that looked like it had the rest of the ACC pretty easily handled?
For sure. I think it came down to a physicality and intensity that in the Syracuse Notre Dame recent years has been fully on the side of Notre Dame, whereas they've been the ones kind of, bossing the rivalry for the last few years. But this year, and we saw it right in that first game in the Dome, they brought that physicality and that intensity. They wanted to make an early statement, putting Jake Taylor on the ground multiple
They nearly
times.
killed Jake Taylor in that game.
I know. And, it's funny because later in that game, Jake Taylor picked up a late hit penalty on, I might have been Jimmy McCool starting and clear something. He like slashed someone, late hit, and Corrigan took him out for, I'm not sure I think that was the same instance. Corrigan, for an undisciplined play, took him out, kept him out for a little stretch there in the fourth quarter. They frustrated him. They got right in his grill. Right from the start, they kind of set that tone with that physicality. And yeah, again, it set the tone for that matchup, and they kind of continued it in the second one. And, I don't know if it's the personnel bringing in someone like a Michael Grace this year, a veteran who's had a lot of success and is a big physical dude, the way that he plays. I know he's a leader in that locker room, so I'm not sure if it's, just comes down to something like that, bringing that kind of a presence in. But, it was a big change this year. And, perhaps the fact that Pat Cavanaugh was gone, and while Chris was still here, I mean, Pat Cavanaugh averaged in recent years, 8 or 9 points a game, or he had those multiple times, 8 or 9 points against the Orange. So, this Notre Dame team, we saw it. We saw it today. They went through about 4 or 5 games where they went through these long stretches of not being able to score. And no one did it better than Syracuse in that first game, almost 40 minutes without the Irish offense being able to put one home. Their offense would go into those dark periods, and it happened in both games, both Syracuse Notre Dame games this year, and that's why they were able to put them away.
Yeah, that's the reason. Also, like you said, that's the reason why Notre Dame's out of the tournament, because they failed to score for the final 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Against Penn State, and the Navy Lions make an incredible comeback.
Oh, incredible, unbelievable, and it was an appropriate way for Notre Dame's season to end, because, like I said, it happened against us, North Carolina, Virginia, Penn. They won all those other games, but they still had these big scoreless droughts, and when you make a habit of that, eventually it bites you.
So let's get into the NCAA tournament. And as Steve alluded to, we don't get to this crazy game against Princeton before having to tackle another Ivy League opponent with a crazy game against Harvard. And if you go back, I think a lot of people, there was a lot of nerves early on in the season as well, because Syracuse had lost this Harvard game also in the Dome. It would have been the crazy stat that everyone was throwing around. It would have been the first time since 1918 that Syracuse would have lost to the same opponent twice in the Dome, and that opponent was the Onondaga Nation, which is really, 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 really funny. And Harvard looked for a good part of both games that they would be on track to do that.
Yeah,
and it's amazing to see. I think, like Steve kind of alluded to, past recent modern Syracuse teams, I think would not have been able to make that comeback in the Dome that they did against Harvard on the opening round.
Agreed. I think there's definitely an added toughness to this team this year, and we've seen it multiple times, doing things that they would not have been able to do in the past. We were just talking about the Notre Dame games. That's something that they just haven't been able to figure out at all in recent years, and they had their number this year. We've seen them do it. This Harvard game, just keeping a cool head about things. I think that's the part of Gates' demeanor where it becomes the biggest positive is the level-headed, we're never out of this, let's just do one thing at a time and we'll get back into it. And that's the exact description of what happened in that fourth quarter against Harvard. And Harvard made some mistakes, and they punished them in a big way.
What was it? 6 unanswered?
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was 6. It was 6 unanswered, and 5 of them were in a 2.5 minute stretch.
Yeah.
Because that's normal.
I mean, and the big thing, it starts with that unreleasable penalty to Owen Guest.
Yeah. That was the big. Oh, by the way, speaking of the physicality of the Syracuse defense frustrating an opponent, Owen Guest was the player they showed earlier in the game, was getting in a little bit of a back and forth with somebody, and Michael Grace was really getting into him physically. He was jabbing him in the midsection a little bit, and he was knocking him in the helmet, and just like little things just to get under his skin a little bit. And who knows, but he did end up being the player who came up and uppercut Spallina to get that unreleasable penalty. And so, who knows? Maybe there is a correlation there with them frustrating him. He makes that mistake, and then Syracuse does something that basically you never see. You see these unreleasable penalties, but to score 3 goals in a minute of an unreleasable penalty, you always, the announcers will always talk about it. Well, this is a big opportunity for the team that is the man up. Unreleasable penalty. You can string some goals together. But very rarely does it actually come to pass that way. If you can score a goal, that's great. If you could score 2 goals, that very rarely happens. To put 3 away in 1 minute, the impact of Johnny Mullen, make it, take it, boom, boom, boom. I mean, you just absolutely never see that. 3 goals in a minute, unreleasable penalty, and they did it at the absolute perfect time. Exactly what they needed.
Crazy.
Mullen is something. let's put it that way.
He's something.
Yeah. For some reason, actually, I have a good reason. I have a good idea why, but he actually lost the face-off battle to Andrew McMeekin this week. But I mean, last week we knew it was going to for Harvard. It wasn't going to be good because Harvard was one of the worst face-off teams in the nation.
Right.
And it showed when Mullen goes 24 of 28 in this game, and also only loses 4 in the previous game against Harvard.
Right. Those numbers, the 2 Harvard games are absolutely unbelievable. And
how does that happen? How do you lose those games with those numbers?
I know.
Or how do you lose that first game and almost lose the second?
I know. I mean, I think it's always weird, but I think it boiled down to, it was McCool's worst game. He got benched for Ippoliti in that game. And then the offense really made some careless. They didn't make like a ton of turnovers, but it was careless mistakes that gave away that extra possession, and they weren't able to capitalize enough. So, it seems unbelievable to go 28 of 32 in that first game and lose, but you gotta give away a lot of advantages. But Johnny Mullen can only do so much with earning that possession. And fortunately, they corrected it the second time.
Yeah. Not to get too negative, but what do you make of Jimmy McCool right now? Because he was coming into the NCAA tournament hot. ACC goaltender of the year, had some really great games in the ACC tournament. The games to end this season, especially thinking the North Carolina game, could have gotten way more out of hand if McCool isn't making the saves he's making.
For sure.
But against Harvard and against Princeton, I know both are great offenses because that's what the Ivy League is this year. But he's under 50%, well under 50% in save percentage on both those games.
Yep. Very interesting. And I think, I don't know if this is just an oversimplification, but you just mentioned the Ivy League this year offensively. I wonder if it does come down to that, because I saw this earlier today. I think I hope I'm getting this right. I'm at least close to getting it right. McCool this year, I believe, has 4 games in which his save percentage has been under 50%. Those 4 games are Cornell, Harvard twice, and Princeton yesterday. So
Ivy League.
We see a theme. All 4. So he's 0 for 4 in terms of 50% against the Ivy League, and I think he might be perfect against everybody else in terms of being above 50%. So
yeah, and I'm just double checking those numbers, and you are indeed correct. He is literally only under 50% against the Ivy League this year.
So, I mean, could it possibly just boil down to that and the incredible offenses? I mean, Princeton, they have an incredible offense, tons of players all over the place. I think he did pretty well yesterday, despite the 12 saves, 18 goals against. Of course, a game like yesterday's game, that's old school Syracuse Princeton, throwing it back to the 90s, 2000s. Really, the 93 shots in the game, fast and furious kind of stuff like that. That's an ugly situation for goalies. Bad numbers save percentage wise, but he had some really good saves, some crucial saves after Hiltz's goal to take the lead. He had 2 big saves on possessions after that just preserved the game and just kind of turned it into a clearing and run the clock out situation for Syracuse. He not good by the numbers, but made some tough saves early in the game too. So I think coming up against a non-Ivy League team in the Final Four, maybe that'll be just the ticket for him. I think obviously potentially Cornell looming should we get there.
Yeah, but
that becomes a whole other question.
I mean, the semifinals are a different opponent entirely, and we'll get to them because it's just such a the play styles. It's so drastically different.
Completely.
And we'll get to those. We'll get to those guys in a bit.
Yep. Yep.
Because yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I was going to say the end of that game. I'm glad we lived up to standard Syracuse protocol in all sports.
Oh yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes.
With that, well, especially with the offside at the end of the game, where I was just like,
Yes.
for one, nobody knew what the call was, and for
Yeah.
two, everybody's sitting there like, so they get 6 seconds on the clock now, and
I know.
you definitively my wife's sitting there next to us. We were watching with a couple of friends, and she's like, "Oh, it's 6 seconds. They can't do much." I'm like, "Listen, just they don't call it the fastest game on 2 feet for no reason."
There you go. That's exactly right.
Like
That's
you can do some damage here. And she's like, "No, they can't." I'm like, just don't.
Nope. Yeah.
Like the
And we-
perfect
and-
game.
and-
You
and
don't
we've-
talk about it.
And we've seen
That's
Palumbo
right.
in that game already doing the craziest things in the world. Like you don't
Right.
expect him to do more.
Exactly. Exactly. Hold that thought. Just 6.5 seconds.
And then they couldn't pick the ball up, which I'm fine with.
That
Sure.
worked. That was good. And I'd say we're lucky that we went offsides when the ball was already behind
Deep.
Princeton's
Yeah.
goal. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
it is unlikely even if they connect on the
Right.
passes. If it was closer to midfield, that's a real trouble situation.
Mhm.
They're getting a shot off if it was closer to midfield. So at least we did that.
Yep.
It seems that you can never just run a game out cleanly. There's always got to be a turnover.
Doesn't matter what sport. Doesn't matter what.
Yeah.
If you have that S on your
Yep.
jersey, you are gonna find a way to screw up in the last 20 seconds or so.
Yeah. Look at the Harvard game. We had to go to overtime because Sammy got stripped on the double team, and Harvard goes the other way. And God, what a moment that was! But can never be fully clean, but it's okay.
Yeah,
It's
and
all
then
good.
you get into the Princeton game. It's a firestorm of a start between the two teams.
Yep.
And you mentioned them. Let's go like in chronological order of the things that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Syracuse and Princeton are jabbing back and forth. It's 11 goals for Christ's sake in the first quarter, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Syracuse jumps out to a 2-goal lead because Julie Spallina decides, "Hey, Colin Molshine can't cover me. I'm going to run past him."
That's right.
How impressive is that to see from Spallina, who, again, I mean, he mentioned it in his post-game press conference. A lot of people don't see Spallina as a dodger,
Right.
or at least an effective dodger, just because of the position that he plays on the Syracuse offense.
For sure. And I think he did something with that level of consistency that I don't think we've seen from him to just time and again be going right past Colin Molshine with basically no resistance, just getting right past him, getting the look he wants to, and of course he's going to put it away. It was an unbelievable performance from Spallina. And what I love is he beats Molshine 4 times off the dodge in the first half. After the 4th goal, they make the switch, and he turns his game in the second half into the more of the feeder role, and he ends up with 4 goals in the first half going against Molshine, 4 assists in the second half, playing that feeder role. And it was an incredible, spectacular performance, and love because of what he did in the first half, he's able to draw some slides. The game-winning goal, he drew just enough attention away from Hiltz to get a little more space, and as we know, Hiltz needs virtually no space with the way and the quickness with which he operates on the field. Just an incredible job from Spallina. I think given everything that the moment and all of that, like this was a new best game of his career. I think 8 points, different ways in the 2 halves, just dominated the game. Incredible stuff.
And that's something for him. I know Christian and I have talked about it. Like on the surface level, you do see the criticism of him not showing up in big games.
Mm-hmm.
And this easily quieted any of that, like he alluded to in his post-game presser. Like
right.
when you can show that you can turn on a dime from, one offensive threat to a completely different offensive threat.
Yeah.
I'd say you live up to your billing.
No question about it. Your billing, and of course the number on your back, and
And I appreciate Christian earlier in the season setting me straight on any of these things. He's been my Yoda through the lacrosse process over these last few years.
There you go. Everybody needs their Yoda on that. That's excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And yeah,
which goal is it? I forget which one it is, and I'm pretty sure you'll remember, John, where someone takes a shot. It's either Leo or Roa, fires it well over the bar, and Spolina has an insane reaction to just catch it at X first.
yes,
Because that shot's coming in at least 100. And somehow behind Hex, he catches it, so he prevents the restart, and then feeds on the crease for the goal.
that's right. Yes, it was. I think it was in the third quarter. Let's see. Yeah, third quarter. Yeah, I think it was Roa took a shot over the goal. An incredible catch by Splenda. They showed on one of the replays an angle from the end line where we could see it, and it was coming right up at his head, and he kind of just moved his head back into the left, catches it, or knocks it down enough, and then immediately finds Finn, and Finn with the quick stick. I mean, that's just wild stuff. And it was actually the second time in the third quarter that he had done that.
Yeah.
He had done it on a shot earlier, and I don't think it didn't lead directly to a goal, but it kept the possession moving quickly. And that play was, all that all happened because of that catch by Spolina. Princeton didn't look like they were ready to be recomposed after that shot by Roa went past the goal, and he kind of caught them off guard. Finn with the quick stick finish, and it's another goal, and that was, let's see, that was in that middle of that 6-goal run, put us up 14-11 at the time there in the third quarter. Yeah, that's I mean, you basically never see that catching 100-mile-an-hour shot. And he did it twice. He did it twice in the third quarter. Amazing.
For the record, also explaining retaining possession off a shot to people is somewhere near impossible. Can confirm.
And the whole closest to the ball rule.
Yeah.
That's
Do you remember?
Oh, sorry.
No, go. I guess I remember you. I know, John, you watched the Cornell Richmond game also.
Yes.
And just imagine trying to explain to someone the picture of the 3 Richmond defenders diving to the sideline for the ball.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man.
My point during the game was when, I can't remember, somebody late in the fourth completely skied one. Just from the top, ball was probably 30 feet in the air. It just came off the stick completely wild.
Yes.
But it was still a shot, and ended up flying over the goal. And the 2 of the people that were around were like, okay, so now why do they still have the ball? I'm like, well, I don't even know. Like, put a stick in this one. We'll figure it out in a minute.
Yeah.
I'll explain it when we're not watching this.
That's right. Too intense. There's absolutely no time for this. Yeah. We'll come back to that. Just accept that it is what it is for now, and we'll come back to that.
Yep. Just know we have the ball. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, man. Love it.
So I promise we will get to our Syracuse, Maryland preview in a bit. We will take a quick break and then talk about something else before we get to our Syracuse, Maryland preview, because this quick break is sponsored by Home Field Apparel, the sponsor of the podcast. You can go to homefieldapparel.com right now and get your comfiest throwback gear, and that is all Syracuse apparel or school of your choosing, and you can use the code NUNES24, NUNES24 for 15% off your very first purchase at homefieldapparel.com.
Do they still have the lacrosse shirt? I don't know if they. The 11-time national champs one.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yep.
Which is of course the correct number. No one look for where that 11th trophy is. Don't worry.
Don't
worry about that. But yeah, pick up your 11-time national championship shirt. Be on their waiting list when they inevitably restock their bomber jackets, so you can get one of the bomber jackets like I do, or any of their other comfy stuff at homefieldapparel.com, and use the code NUNES24 at checkout for 15% off your very first purchase at homefieldapparel.com to get the swanky 11-time national championship shirt that you see on the screen right now.
That's a beaut. Love it.
Syracuse is looking for 12, and they're off to Foxborough. And one of the big reasons why they're off to search for their 12th national championship is because for the first time in like quite a few years, Syracuse had multiple people selected in a pro lacrosse draft.
Mm.
Like there were quite a few years in recent memory as well where there wouldn't be a single Syracuse player taken in a pro outdoor lacrosse draft. And this year, Syracuse gets 4 of them taken, headlined by 2 first-rounders in Sam English and Owen Hiltz.
Absolutely, yeah. It was. I went back and looked at some of the recent stuff when I was writing about the PLL draft, and it was our most first-round picks, definitely in the PLL era. The 2 first-rounders, and then the 4 guys drafted. That's the most going back to, I believe it was 2016, the last time we had that many. So yeah, we're going back a decade to the last time we had that many guys taken in a pro draft. So that's very exciting to see if you're a Syracuse fan, because the hope is that it breeds more of that coming down the pipe. It certainly will for next year's draft, where we're going to have 4 is going to look like nothing next year. With the Spallina class and that whole group, but the hope is that it breeds more of that moving down the pipe. So very, very exciting, and very well deserved for a bunch of dudes who make a huge impact on this team, especially Sammy English and Owen Hiltz.
And then the other 2 players are 2 defenders, Carter Rice at short stick defensive mid, and a guy that I want to focus a little bit more attention on before we get to our Maryland preview. It's a guy you've talked about multiple times in Michael Grace.
Yeah.
2-time Division III national champion. His previous school, RIT, is heading to the championship to take on Tufts, I believe. And there's a lot of reason why I think a lot of people were excited to have Grace come in at the beginning of the season. And now he's slotted in really nicely to pair up with Dwan and Figueres in that close defense position. Yeah.
No doubt. I mean, they have been making that work all season. They complement each other nicely. Grace is really good at playing kind of the interior defensive role and mucking things up and scooping up ground balls, which he's fantastic at. And he's just a big physical defensive player who's basically pro ready. That's what they were saying about him when he came in to us when he transferred to us last summer. The guy's pro ready now. Really good indoor player too. So, he's just a force back there, and he's had a great season. And Figueres and Dwan too. They have been quite the trio there.
Reading your article and just looking back to the last time Syracuse had 4 players taken in a draft, and reading those names is just so nostalgic. Dylan Donahue, Brandon Mullins, Warren Hill, Tim Barber. Man.
Yeah, I know it. Good stuff. Good times. We're thinking about that. Oh, excuse me, Christian.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're thinking about that recently too, because first Final Four since 2013. So we're thinking back to that era and the players that define that era a lot recently. So it's good. It's good to be getting back to that.
And definitely, you mentioned there's a ton of quarterfinal teams as well in that era, even last year. That you feel like Syracuse had the horses to potentially make it to a final four, especially with some of the rosters they had. I mean, I specifically think the 2015, like that team should have absolutely made a Final Four and just somehow could not figure out Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, that one, that's a tough one. That was an incredibly talented team up and down the field. That one, that's one of the big ones. That kind of defined most of the 2010s for Syracuse, was those after the back-to-back titles that ended the aughts, kind of those postseason failings, being a 1, 2, or 3 seed and just not getting it done in May to fall short of the Final Four, except for 2013. But this year finally brought it back with a couple wins. So,
well, and that's kind of a funny thing to think about too, of like the irony of 2013 between what it meant for lacrosse and for basketball.
Yeah.
So kind of both of them hit that downward slide almost right after that.
Yeah.
And there was the fluke Final Four that basketball had that I don't think anybody could tell you with a straight face was remotely deserved. But that was kind of I wonder if we looked back on SU athletics in that era as to, what exactly was happening behind the scenes.
Interesting. And, perhaps not so coincidentally, it was, not long after that 2013 that we joined the ACC.
Yeah, that was the year. 2013 was our first year, right?
Yeah. Or was it
14?
The next 2014.
Yeah. Right.
And
you want nostalgia moments, 2014 ACC tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Donahue goal.
Yes. Oh, my God. That was unbelievable. Tic-tac-toe, the three attackmen.
Yes.
Dots, Rice, Donahue, boom. Oh, one of the best finishes ever. We've seen some great ones, and that was one of the best ever. Oh my goodness, yes. But yeah, no, I wonder. Joining the ACC. I mean, certainly that's been the case with basketball, with the way that it's all gone into mediocrity and below since joining the ACC, where they were those 5 years, those last 5 years or so before joining the ACC. But yeah, with lacrosse. Anyway.
So how fitting is it that Syracuse's Final Four opponent, first time back into championship weekend, is a former ACC team?
Yeah. There you go. Absolutely. And one that they've obviously had their struggles with. I think after what's happened with Notre Dame this year, Maryland becomes the new
boogeyman for Syracuse.
Boogeyman. Yes. Thank you. Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
Let's go back to the game that these two teams played at Maryland at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
It's on February 15th, early game, awful weather in Baltimore. But I mean, or Annapolis, where I forget where exactly. College Park.
College Park.
Yeah, but like awful weather in Maryland. It's a gloomy day in the middle of February.
Drizzly, rainy, cold.
I mean, and then when you look at the stats, so Syracuse loses this game 11-7.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the stats, the teams are very, very similar. McNaney and McCool take 12 saves each.
Yep.
Syracuse only loses the turnover battle by 1. Each team has 1 failed clear. Syracuse wins the ground ball battle only by 1. The faceoffs are dead even.
Yeah.
There's really 2 areas where Syracuse falls behind in Maryland, and it's that Maryland converts on 2 of 3 of their extra man opportunities, and Syracuse only gets 1 extra man and doesn't convert. And then the other one is just shots on goal, because Syracuse wins the shooting battle 41-32, but shots on goal, Maryland is more accurate at 23-19. It's a very close game, John. Like, how do you kind of differentiate how Maryland, for all intents and purposes, dominates the second half, because they outscore Syracuse 7-2 in the second half?
Yeah. That's right. There was even, Syracuse had the lead 5-4 at the break, and Maryland came out and adjusted much, much better. I think it comes down to what it usually comes down to with Maryland, which is their overall discipline, efficiency, and the way that they play defense against you. They're always kind of a team, and you alluded to it a while ago when we were talking about how different the next opponent is. They're a team that grinds it out on you, do just enough offensively and shut you down defensively. So I think that the difference was just the Maryland defense. And I think you see it, just as far as the numbers are concerned, you see it with those shots. And you just mentioned it, 9 more shots for Syracuse total, but 4 more on goal for Maryland. 41 shots for Syracuse, only 19 of them on goal, less than half. That's a product of a Maryland defense that is incredibly disciplined and frustrates you with that level of discipline to the point where we've seen this happen with Syracuse: work a long possession, not be able to get very much, and end up having to take a shot that is too far away, or from not a good angle, or with guys draped all over you, something like that. That becomes a brutal formula, especially when you then also have Logan McNaney as the backstop, just to top it all off. So that second half, came down to the Maryland's defensive intensity, and that's what it usually comes down to in a Maryland game.
And that's, from again, going back to the third party observer here that doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground, looking at the box from this weekend, 9-6 dogfight against Georgetown.
Oh, absolute dogfight. Oh my God, that game.
That was.
We go from our game, who is nobody knows how to play defense, and it's just an offensive showcase, to that mess of whatever the hell it was.
Yeah,
which was actually everyone knows how to play defense.
Right, exactly. It's just like
exactly.
Yeah. So, are we talking like an unstoppable force, immovable object type thing going on here of like high powered offense against stingy defense, and where's it going to go?
For sure. The different styles of play. Absolutely. And that'll be the focus is our offensive end, their defensive end, but it honestly extends to like the entire way that they play. These two teams, Maryland and Syracuse, are just extremely opposite in from the head coaches on down. The way that they operate as head coaches, we talked about, Gate is very empowering his players, the ultimate confidence and creativity and all of that. And Tillman is definitely he drills the discipline.
Drill sergeant type.
For sure. He drills the discipline of what needs to be done into his team, and that's how they play. And so it's I guess the looseness and creativity of Syracuse versus efficiency of Maryland.
I live in Camillus, so the Mike Messier of it all is very much
There you go. That's right. That's right. Well, close to home for sure.
Yeah.
Well, remember, Tillman was an assistant for a decade at Navy before he starts his head coaching career. So I think we know where he gets it from.
For sure.
And especially remember, he's part of Navy in that 2000 stretch where Navy is one of the dominant programs in the country.
Yeah.
If you remember 2004.
Of course. That's right. Yeah. That's that. I like to remember that one. That one won very well.
Oh, yeah. That one won well for Syracuse fans, indeed.
Absolutely. Mikey Powell's last game of his career ended with a title.
Just a crazy game
as well. Yeah. Incredible. I remember being a kid watching that game for sure.
So we get to this Maryland team. We've already mentioned about its defense. How does Syracuse try and solve Logan McNaney? Maryland's coming in with the best goalkeeper in the nation. He makes 12 saves and only allows 7 against you the first time that you face him. This is a guy who came in, didn't even get a starting spot out of his freshman year, earned it after getting a couple of chances early on in the season, and all of a sudden he's a freshman goalkeeper winning a national championship his freshman year.
Yeah.
How do you or can you try and stop McNaney?
I think the biggest thing is you have to be able to get the best looks for yourself on him as possible, because this was something that Notre Dame has always done and did when Liam Entenmann was their goalie with their incredible defense. Was the defense on its own was so good. The 6 field players in front of you, they would force you to take these bad shots, and then you're shooting on the best goalie in the country. And it was just a brutal combination. And that's the kind of thing that Maryland does. McNaney is so good, and especially so good come May. He's clutch. He's a big game player. The most outstanding player of that 2022 Final Four when they went undefeated that year. And so I think it comes down to giving yourself the highest percentage looks against him that you can. And I think the best way to do that for Syracuse might be to try to focus on attacking the Maryland shorties, which is something we know that this team likes to do. We see it all the time, every game with usually Michael Leo, Sammy English, Luke Roa, whoever's got that shorty. Hiltz has started doing it more as the season has gone on. If he ever gets a shorty on any possession, is just kind of going on that individual dodge back and forth against the shorty to see if you can, just get that, beat him enough to give yourself that look. Maybe Peyton Anderson on the second line, I think that's going to be a big thing we're going to see this Syracuse team do, because we know that they like to do it. And I think if there's any area of weakness for Maryland, it's that, because they're, on the whole, they're so good playing their man. The way that they slide is physical, intense, and intelligent, with the way they time their slides and the way that they recover on the back end of it. So, that's what makes them so tough. The other way to go about it is, just kind of the constant ball movement that we see from this team, but we've struggled with that against some of the, bigger, more the big name program, more physical defenses. So, we'll see about that. I mean, that's ideal if we can somehow pull it off, but I think going after the Maryland shorties is going to be a big thing we'll see next Saturday.
How do you go about stopping this Maryland team on the offensive side? Because we know it's not a Maryland team that's blessed with the most offensive talent. I mean, Eric Spanos is the name that really jumps out, but even then, he's not the Logan Wisnauskas that you would have seen in previous Maryland teams.
Right.
He's not the Matt Rambo you would see in previous Maryland teams. How would you go about stopping a Maryland team that doesn't, as Quint and Anish said most at the time on the past broadcast, that doesn't have an alpha quarterback or an alpha player on their offense?
Right. Exactly. I think for the Syracuse defense, it comes down to trusting themselves, being disciplined with their slide packages and all of that, because of exactly what you just mentioned, Christian. I think, I think that they can play them straight up, and have some pretty good success doing so. I mean, Maryland, like Quinn said on the broadcast today, they rely on that teamwork, the full 6-on-6, and again, their efficiency in their ball movement and their teamwork. But with the players that this Syracuse defense has, I think you trust yourself to win these individual matchups, while of course still working together as a unit, and not commit any bad slides that open things up for Maryland when they don't need to be opened up for them. I think that's going to be an important thing. Again, that's a hallmark of the Maryland defense. When they slide, they're smart about it and they recover well. Not making slides that are kind of in between, halfway there, or ill-timed. Trusting yourself to play them straight up, because I think they can do that against this Maryland team. So that will be an interesting challenge this week for O'Dearna and his group.
Does Syracuse turn this into the offensive battle it wants it to be, or does Maryland's defense hold strong? Who do you think? Who's got it on Saturday?
Oh boy. Well, I think that history has shown us that Maryland would probably have the edge in that. I hesitate to say with, I mean, they have had the edge in these matchups, and as Steve was saying earlier, it's in recent years, that's usually what we're looking at, is the high-powered offense versus the physical defense. And I tend to think in those situations, especially if you're talking about like the discipline of Maryland versus sometimes the playing loose of Syracuse, it tends to favor the defensive team. I think that's been, I think the recent evidence has shown us that it would tilt Maryland's advantage on that. But you know what? Is the Syracuse offense showing us some things in these recent games, that they're ready to maybe change that tune at all? Because I think they're playing right now in the last 4 games in ways that we haven't seen from them accomplish the things that they would in recent years. They wouldn't even be here to this point. So right. Are they showing us that they're ready to overcome these things? They already have. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see if they can do it on Saturday. Yeah.
There's always there's always a bit of truth to any of the old adages or whatnot. And the offense wins games, defense wins championships. Like that's no matter what sport it is, that always kind of rises to the forefront. But
yeah,
in a one-off, you never know. Like
for sure. Oh, for sure. It's it'll be an interesting test of that this weekend if they coming up against Syracuse and well, we hope it's not an interesting test of it if we can take care of them, but who knows if they were to meet Cornell beyond that would obviously be another defense offense situation. So hoping to disprove that next weekend.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I know I'm putting you on the spot here. Who do you think takes it?
Saturday's game.
Yeah.
You know what? Why not? I'm gonna say we are ready to stop. Listen, this has been a season. How about this? This has been a season of turning over a new leaf for this group of players. These last 3 years, it's been all about building year over year in the Gate era. We've built all 4 years, and we've done things this year. We've already mentioned it. This team has done things this year that they haven't done in years past. They exercised the demons against Notre Dame multiple times, 2 for 2. And I think they're showing us things that they haven't shown us before, growth that we haven't seen before. So why not? Why not make it another? Oh, the other thing I was going to say, they've been on the revenge tour in recent games. ACC final against Duke, fixed the regular season results. Opening round game against Harvard, fixed the regular season results. So why not make it 3 for 3 against Maryland? I'll go for that.
Let's do that, and then it makes Christian really uncomfortable.
I hate you so much.
And those of us old remember a really, really good final between those two teams. So.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh!
2009 is seen in such a different light for me right now.
I was living in Marlborough, Mass, and could not get anyone to go to Foxborough with me that day.
Oh,
I watched it on TV from 20 miles away.
Oh, Steve.
Yeah.
I think I have said this to you before. I was at that game.
Nice.
2009 was my senior year at Syracuse. Yep. And so, I had graduated a few weeks before. I went to all 4 playoff games that year.
That's awesome.
And I had done so the year before too. So what an incredible run. But yeah, that was something else. That'll never be topped, I don't think.
Easily the best sporting event that I've ever seen. And I didn't even see it live. I watched it on TV and I was still like calling all of my friends like, holy what just happened? Like, what did I just watch?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The best thing about it this year also, it will be on TV that you can watch because it will be on ESPN2, the semifinal games. Syracuse, Maryland will be the second game that is following the Cornell Penn State game that is happening at 12 o'clock, also on ESPN2. The championship game, Memorial Day as usual, that is on mainline ESPN, which will be a lot of fun as well. We will see what happens next week and how my mood is on Sunday night if certain results go their way.
Oh, boy.
And again, for those who don't know, the disclaimer, I'm Cornell's men's lacrosse play-by-play guy. I'm very invested in that team as well. and the Jeff Tamburoni Bowl in the first game.
Yeah. That's
so do we run a live broadcast Monday night if
That will be Monday afternoon, though, so that'll be right in the middle of your Memorial Day barbecues, unfortunately. So
that's right.
Unless there are other degenerates like me who will be watching that game instead of enjoying what should be a beautiful Memorial Day.
Well, it's in Syracuse, so it's probably going to be raining.
Yeah, for real. Mm-hmm.
If current patterns hold true, it's been a soggy one.
Yes.
People wonder why we're playing at home.
We have a couple of minutes left, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the other lacrosse program on the Hill, because usually we're talking about the women's lacrosse team at this point, given recent history. But this year it doesn't go as well. Syracuse is unranked for the first time in God knows how long heading into the tournament. In my opinion, they essentially squeak into the tournament as one of the last few teams in, as they actually battled the last team in Brown that was into the tournament, and then win the game against Brown, but then fail to go on the revenge tour that Syracuse men's lacrosse is going on and lose to Yale in the second round. John, it cannot, to me at least, it cannot be as simple as Olivia Adamson got hurt early on the season, and whoops, there we go.
Yeah.
Where does it go wrong for the Syracuse women's lacrosse team, and how can they fix it for next season?
I think it went wrong with a perfect storm of circumstances, one of which is the Adamson injury. I think that was surrounded by everything they lost last year, 2 classes worth of players that played huge roles in every facet of the game. So they lose, Emma Tyrell on offense and a couple other, Natalie Smith, Maddie Baxter, Kate Mashesky on draw, Delaney Schweitzer in goal, and 3 starting defenders. So they lose a ton off of last year's team. They're coming into this year with Emma Ward, Olivia Adamson, and then a whole couple other people who played supporting roles last year, and then a whole bunch of brand new players. And then they lose Adamson. So now they've got basically a team that's majority of people are either playing college lacrosse for the very first time, the true freshman, redshirt freshman, or playing significant roles for the first time, increased roles for the first time. That was basically the vast majority of the team. And then I think for the cherry on top of all of that, you talk about the number 1 schedule in the country. And I think that cocktail all put together made it a situation that was difficult for them. And I have to say, I think I probably consider myself a bit of an apologist, I guess, for this team, because I actually think they did a lot of good things this year for finishing with a 10-9 record and not even making it to the quarterfinals. I think that they did a lot of good things this year. Picked up a number of wins against really good teams, went on a run there where they beat Loyola, Notre Dame, and Virginia right in the middle of the year, beat Maryland earlier in the year. And then just like the men, they had a really bad April where I'm not quite sure what happened with a couple of those games. Not sure if it was the schedule catching up with them or what happened, but and then it kind of peters out. But I think it was that perfect storm of all those circumstances, and I think what it does is sets them up very nicely for next year. Because you mentioned how do they get this fixed for next year? I think the way they get it fixed is by getting all of these players extensive experience this year on such a young team that will put them in a position to be a lot more veteran than they would have been next year. A lot of people starting and just playing big roles for this team who wouldn't have if this was a year ago with all of the veterans that they have had in previous years. So I think this really is going to set them up nicely I know, of course, obviously Emma Ward is gone. But if Adamson comes back, I would think that she only played in 3 games this year. So I would think she has the ability to medical redshirt. So if you have Adamson back, plus basically the entire rest of the team, add in a few highly ranked freshmen. I think they've got at least 3 freshmen who are going to play in the Senior All-America game this summer. I think we should be looking at a pretty good team next year. There's a lot of young talent on this team that contributed in big ways. They got to get the draw situation figured out. That held them back in a few games this year. If Adamson is back, she could be a potential solution. She did very well in the last couple of years when she was called upon to do that. That's probably the biggest area of weakness, is just figuring out the draw circle. But yeah, I think I'm of the belief that there's a ton of young talent on this team, and that the experience they gained this year is going to put them in a position to be much improved next season.
Yeah, is any of the new talent coming in, or any of them named Humphreys?
Oh man. That would be, unfortunately, I think they've exhausted them all on North Carolina eligibility, if you can believe it, on setting assist records and setting freshman goal records, and and everything that they're doing there. Unfortunately, I think no. Yeah, and also, as we know, unfortunately, not named Spallina.
Yeah,
because Clemson took that last name on the women's side from us, so that's a thing, unfortunately. And that reduced what was an unbelievable next year's freshman class, but it's still, they lost Alexis Spallina and then one other player who I think is a fellow Long Islander, but they've still got a couple of 5-stars and a couple of highly ranked 4-stars coming in for next year's team. So, and I think for those players, I mean, it's great that they're highly ranked. I think it might be tough. We'll see, but it might be tough for them to get on the field because of everything that we've got coming back offensively. So, and all everywhere defensively as well. So yeah, we shall see.
we shall indeed see. But for the men's season, for the first time in quite some time, we can say it's not over because they will be playing on Memorial Day weekend. Syracuse is going back to Foxborough to play in the Final Four. Can they defeat Maryland and make it to the championship game to also, for the first time since 2013, play for a national championship? It should be fun. It will be less fun if it's against Cornell.
Well, we've got the Jeff Tambroni Bowl on Saturday. Could we have the Christian de Guzman Bowl on Monday? We'll
Side note, I don't think anyone's beating Cornell.
Sadly, I do kind of think that. This does feel like a Cornell. Now that that pesky Richmond is out of the way, we'll see.
I think the only team that can match Cornell is Maryland, and that's because of their defense.
Yeah, I think that's
Syracuse's defense and its offense. I don't think can match Cornell. But if that situation arises, we'll talk about it next week.
We will, indeed.
I'll be happy to test that out. I'd be more than happy to see it.
I'll be happy to invite John back on here next week should we arrive in that position.
Yes.
I will be less excited if it's somehow Syracuse Penn State, but let's not think about that. That will do it for this week's edition of the Disloyal Idiots podcast here on the Fans First Sports Network. I want to thank John Orsenigo for joining us here on the Fans First Sports Network on Disloyal Idiots. You can go check out his work about everything coming up for Final Four weekend on our sister site, newsmagician.com. Be sure to check it out over there. If you're here watching us live, most weekends on Sundays at 8 p.m. That's when we run these live streams on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Go check us out there. And if you're listening on your podcast platform of choice, you can follow us along, leave a like, rating, review, subscription, to leave a comment so that we can trick the algorithm into expanding the Ottoman Empire. For the first time since 2013, it's a Syracuse team in the Final Four men's bracket. That's good to say.
Yes, it is.
And you can imagine a lot of people in Foxborough will be saying, "Go Orange."
Go Orange.
Go Orange.